a lot of startup beginnings are of this like pure stupidity of how hard can it be, because the answer is very hard. It's always the answer is very, very hard. I was able to get a role with FFVC in New York in Empire State Building as my first role in venture, which was just absolutely bananas. As an immigrant going up to the 42nd floor of Empire State Building, you're like, wow, like this is reality. This is happening.
Don't go ask a bunch of entrepreneurs how hard it is to start something. If you've got this thing that you think that you could solve, just start on step one and don't go ask anybody how hard it is, because
one of my co-founders is there and he's just like, jumping around, and he's like, we got sales. And I'm like, what do you mean we got sales? Hello?
Hello, sir.
How's it going?
How are you? Good.
Doing great.
Happy, what day's today?
Wednesday.
Oh
Indeed.
my gosh. Yeah. It's one of those weeks where it's all running together. And then, of course, being mid-December, in between the holiday shopping and planning and all the other things. I don't know what day it is.
I feel like that's just every week when you're running a startup. It's just a constant mush of days into weekends and into whatever is next.
And you're mid fundraise, right? So everything is just one long squishy.
Yeah, I mean, we're towards the tail end of that, luckily, and then still building and shipping all the time. So
yeah, nice. Well, thanks for joining. Funny, to kind of go back to how we got connected. I remember specifically when I was part of the Blue Startups Accelerator, we were going through towards the tail end and sort of talking about fundraising and managing your fundraise and manage your contacts. And one of my friends who came through Blue Startups with me said, you got to try this platform called Flowlie. And I heard from another friend, and it's a game changer, and he raised money. It was one of the, and then everybody on the call was like, oh my gosh, we gotta get in. And of course I do what I do is I immediately sign up and then start digging into the platform. So it's so good, by the way.
Appreciate that. It became better with your feedback. So when you say digging in, we generally means digging in, and generally very much appreciate it. I wish more people were as transparent about what worked and what didn't, because it actually allows us to improve, which is the most important thing we can do at this stage.
Yeah. It's and fundraising is one of the, especially for a founder, I feel like it's one of the hardest things. Not only just the feedback that you get when you're trying to raise funds for a startup, but also just the process of organizing yourself and everybody that you meet, every event you go to. There's 4 people that you're like, okay, I got to keep them top of mind, and I got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
And your mind is just this sort of scattered, and then what you build is not only helpful from a workflow perspective, but just anyways, we'll get into the product, but I think what I'd love to do is sort of start pre-Flowlie and go back to your background and sort of what led to Flowlie, which is quite interesting that you came from so much investing before getting into Flowlie. So take us back to school, post-school, intern, first kind of jobs and the background that sort of led up to Flowlie.
Sure, happy to. We can go, as back as you want, but I'll skip through the first, few decades of just growing up, right? Originally born in Bucharest, Romania, raised there as well, and then came to the States initially for college in upstate New York at Rochester. And that's actually where I started my first entrepreneurial journey. I had a number of, let's just call it small side gigs in Romania as a teenager. So I was always really interested in the business. But when I came to college was the first time I said, let's actually try to build a startup. We identified a problem of just rising textbook prices and the inefficiency in the secondary marketplace of textbooks and the insane markups that university affiliated systems are actually putting, things like Barnes and Noble, for example, on the spread that they're actually getting on those books whenever they're repurchasing them from students and selling them back. So he said there must be a better way in it, because like if you are able to find the information about where people are going to study and what they've studied the last semester, you have literally all the information you need to do an efficient transfer of textbooks, and you can take a
Hmm.
small spread on top of it, and then everything is cheaper for both parties. So we did just that, and about 11 months after we started, we got an acquisition offer to sell the technology that we built. We were just expanding to our second campus, and we'd end up not selling because we were young and stupid, and we thought, at that point, that money was just not enough. Looking back, it was more than plenty, quite frankly, but, it is what it is. And that was really the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey. That was kind of the seed of, wow, like this is cool. We're building something. We had users, we had revenue. Um, we need to do this again at some point.
What was the name of that company?
Called Barter Out.
Barter Out.
uh,
Uh,
which also is a funny story about like just naming. We're really trying to figure out how we're going to call this, and we realized that we're effectively creating a platform for bartering. But barter in was taken, so we said let's just do it barter out, and that stuck. It was actually a pretty cool name. Like it worked.
yeah. I love that process, by the way, when you're in that moment where someone's like, okay, it's going to be like text swap. No, it's going to be like book give. No, it's going to be like, and you're going through all the different permutations and you're like looking at domain names and like you're trying to figure out like, and you're waiting for one of those to just sort of stick where like nobody can get rid of it. It's like, it's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you did phenomenal
Um,
with Stacklist. That is a really, really well named company.
I tried to do stacks first and then had my, as I should have guessed, but like had my moment where the trademark attorney was like, Meta paid like $90 million for the word meta. So having a little short thing like that is hard. Prior to barter out though, when I think about like if you TLDR your childhood, is there anything growing up that you feel like were parents entrepreneurial? Was there anything in the family? Like, is there anything that sort of led you to this, or is it sort of just being naturally curious, or like, what was the thing that to be in that sort of state in college to want to sort of go down this path versus being like laser set on a corporate or a sort of traditional position?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had an amazing childhood, but like nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. Like I'm definitely the odd one out in the whole family lineage. And my direct parents is a central banker and an MD, right? So like you couldn't get more different than entrepreneurship. And I would say they were definitely cautious on pushing towards the entrepreneurial journey. Also because my family didn't have a lot of experience in it, right? So with that, it was a lot of self-exploration and quite frankly just a lot of reading books and being fascinated about what others have been building. And I remember my favorite magazine since childhood um, was Science and Technology. It was this magazine that was published in Romania that every month came with literally everything that happened across the world in terms of new developments of software, hardware, medical devices, drones, space technology, cancer research, just like a collection of like the cutting edge of science. And I remember because my mom had this like newsstand in the hospital, and she would always like bring it home whenever it was published. Like that was the highlight of the month. I was so excited when my mom came back on the beginning of the month with that magazine. It would just like go through the whole thing and realize like, wow, like there's so many interesting people building the future, and I want to be one of them. And I've been reading that magazine when we're talking probably like 10 years in my childhood, and I was like, it was a thing. So
Yeah. So
that's
you were
like,
naturally curious and like and having that lens to the world was something that you had a desire for early on.
yeah, I would say like I'm weird in the sense that I read the release notes of like software, right? So like that's my type. I'm just curious about like what has improved in the world recently.
Mhm. So that naturally, it seems like then your lens, and I'm just assuming you got into college, but then you started to see a problem, and you were you just naturally drawn to that problem of barter out and sort of solving that, that problem, or was there like what was the first inkling? I see a problem, but now I'm going to go fix it and set up a company. Like what was the sort of impetus there?
Yeah, I mean, really for barter route was, this sucks, quite frankly. Like, we have to pay a lot of money for textbooks. Like, there must be a better way. So we're just really brainstorming, and we came up on this idea and said, like, how hard would it really be to build it? And I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of startup beginnings are of this like pure stupidity of how hard can it be, because the answer is very hard. It's always the
Yeah.
answer is very, very hard. It's just you never really know it until you actually go through it. And then there's that moment of naivety, let's say, let's not call it stupidity, of, every founder is like, well, like we might as well try, like how hard can it really be? And that's really what the tipping point is. And then you get onto it, and then you find more interesting things to work on. And then now all of a sudden you have a team. Like, it was crazy, like looking back, like we were what, like, 18 years old, 19 years old, and we had 11 students working with us. Like, we were working a lot of hours on it, like every single week. We were able to get an office space in downtown Rochester as a result of a partnership that the university had with something else. We were getting some money. We generated revenue literally like day one in our first transaction. And like all of this, now looking backwards, I'm like, how did we kind of like put all of this together on top of, going to um I ended up doing 2 degrees while I was in college, and then also had like some other part-time jobs. Like, it honestly feels like a little bit bananas, but like it worked
You
out,
were
and
hustling.
it was cool. Like, it was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
I love that though. If you really think about it, if you break down why so many stories start in college in that period when you're learning and exploring the world, but you have that naivety about like how hard could this be? But I actually love that. I would almost say even as you get older, don't go ask a bunch of entrepreneurs how hard it is to start something. Like, if you've got this thing that you think that you could solve, just start on step one and don't go ask anybody how hard it is, because
Yeah,
everyone's gonna give you all of the details of how hard it is. But once you start scratching that itch and just getting to step one and step two and step three, then you find yourself down this path a little bit. I think that naivete and that lack of understanding you know, the all of the steps in the process and how difficult it is great. It's such a good mindset to keep, because it can lead to such amazing things.
100%. Yeah, and that was really
Yeah.
the thing, because when we end up not selling the company, and then we end up shutting it down a few, let's call it a year later or so, like it was just not something that we wanted to do full time for the rest of our college career, and then afterwards. Then it gets to a point where like a business needs like proper business support, and I feel like any founder understands when you go from, let's say, a project generating some cash, and then like, no, like we have to like actually run a business, run customer success and customer support. Like, we got hacked once, and like, all right, we have to like improve our, like just like stuff, right? And I'm sure there
Yeah.
was another student, to be honest, like it was just like probably another project of like, I don't know, I'm testing, hacking, and I'll just hack Bartra, like whatever. They effectively just purchased all our books, but like didn't actually make the purchase. So we had to restore the whole database. Good things to have backups. That was a good lesson there. Luckily,
Yeah.
we did, and that led into some research that I've done on how other universities better support their founders, because I think University of Russia is a phenomenal university and got incredible professors and really, really smart students, and it produces like one of the largest percentage of PhDs in the United States. But I think that is, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, a problem, because PhDs don't end up starting companies usually. So we actually have one of the smallest rates of entrepreneurs coming out of University of Rochester, while we're producing, PhDs and scientists and Nobel laureates and, MDs, every single year, which is, again, great, but not from a business standpoint. So I didn't really feel like I got a lot of advice or support throughout that time, and was curious what our universities like Harvard, Stanford, Chicago, for example, great entrepreneurial program, are doing. which led to more research, led to more interviews, led to more research and more interviews. And ended up, I was in New York at a conference. And then this professor at Georgetown was like, you should publish a book on this topic. And I'm like, I've never written anything longer than an essay in English. I'm definitely not publishing a book. And he stuck with me. And, 3 weeks later, I agreed. And then he ended up signing the publishing deal at his um, editorial, but his publishing house. Sorry, that's the word
Yep.
in English. He's even 10 years in, still struggling with English sometimes. At his publishing house, and then a few years later, that was published. When They Win You Win: A More Human Approach to Supporting Entrepreneurship, and that honestly, that book was probably the best network opener at that age that I could have gotten, because I ended up meeting so many smart and well-connected people. And whenever you're asking someone, hey, can I interview you and I'll publish you in a book? People tend to answer positively because people want to
Right.
be in books, And this is pre-Chat GPT, so I want to make that statement because I feel more proud about it than before. It's like,
Totally.
I wrote a book, but now I wrote a book before Chat GPT, so like that makes it like a little bit extra awesome, So
It's just you and Microsoft Word.
exactly, a lot of that. That
Yeah.
was, I don't even remember what was the file, maybe like 250 pages or something. Like that was long. That was the
Nice.
longest thing I've ever written in my whole life.
What was the transition from, I know you went from, was it from barter out to internship, and then into investments and finance, right?
Yeah,
What was
so it
that
was
sort of
actually,
transition?
yeah, well, it was actually gonna, let's just call it a bar route into book into everything else, because the book was the thing that opened up everything. I ended up
Right.
meeting um, partners and principals and accelerator managers and startup studio managers at, VC firms and accelerators and incubators across the world, quite frankly. A lot of it was US and Canada, but also we had, Europe and Asia. And that allowed me to understand venture a little bit better, get attracted and say, hey, like, interesting. Like, it's cool to be a founder, but it's also cool to be a supporter of founders and also invest in them and find new founders and do research. So I feel like research has always been like an important part of like my personality. And that's why venture, I think, resonated so well. So was able to get a role with FFVC in New York in Empire State Building as my first role in venture, which was just absolutely bananas. As an immigrant going up to the 42nd floor of Empire State Building and looking around to New York City skyline, you're like, wow, like
Yeah.
this is reality. This is happening.
Right.
And that was just absolutely unbelievable. I had a chance to work under primarily Mike McCombie as the head of platform there, but also John Frankel and Plotkin there at FFVC, and just brilliant minds on both investing at the early stages, but also doing a great platform work and networking. And Mike opened up most of the doors that I opened up during that time in my career. Like he was the first person who believed in me and said, hey, I'll just carry Vlad around at all these events and places, and end up meeting hundreds of people in venture as a result of that, which was amazing.
Wow. Well, so this, I can start to see the picture of how organizing your raise and your investment contacts starts to the experience of meeting all the people and being in those networks and things like that,
Yeah.
would eventually lead to Flowlie, which is cool.
It's very funny because one of my very first projects there was trying to get all our investor contacts organized in one place. So it's
Oh,
funny how it comes full circle. It was like, Vlad, it's an absolute
yep.
mess. Like most of it's in my head and in the head of the other partners. Like we need to like figure it out. And I'm like, bet I'll do it. We'll figure it out. So
That's amazing. So how long, what was the stretch in investments and finance?
so that was about 4 years. Yeah, so got a chance to move to Austin and then move to Miami, where I worked for a multifamily office, leading the Southeast for them initially, and ended up doing the whole East Coast for them. And that was another amazing network opener of just the ability to meet wealthy individuals, get the chance to do deals and syndicate deals with families and individuals across primarily equities, right? So investing into early stage startup, but also doing some other credit opportunities and things that were crossing our desk. So getting a lot of exposure about how deals get done, how deals get structured, how SPVs work, the legal context of it, and also again being in great rooms. And that too was a bet. Like I feel like the narrative or the common thread of all of this is people taking bets on Vlad. This bet specifically was Landon Ainge, who brought me to Miami for this role. And despite being by far the youngest person who took that role, because we had the counterparts in a few other areas of the world, of the country, and was by far the youngest. And you get there and you're like, wow, like I appreciate you believing me in this, and I'll won't disappoint you. I mean, we end up having the best region by far. So not claiming too much credit on it, but like we did well. We did really well in that region, but it was because someone believed, and then I wanted to make sure that I proved them right. So
This sounds like the period in which you were getting your PhD in raising funds,
yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah, I
Which I'm
mean,
sure.
we saw thousands upon thousands of deals. We've done 100 plus transactions, led 11 of those. Like it was intense. We did a lot of volume during that time.
Yeah, that's amazing. How did it like? What was the transition? Was there anything pre-entrepreneurial before Flowly, coming out of this period? And did you, when you were going through this period and you were sort of seeing how all of these firms were investing in startups, did it ever make you want to start a startup or become a VC? Like, was there ever those points when you were sort of figuring out, is becoming a VC the path that I want to take, or did it more sort of lead you toward, now I understand how to raise funds, so I want to go build something again?
Yeah, so Flowly was never a, let's just call it a very well thought out decision, at least early on, right? Like it was like, well, let's just try to build some things to get this off the ground because we are seeing a problem that we think it's worth solving. And the first problem that we were solving with Flowly is actually not the one that we're solving right now. We were building an AI analyst effectively for helping with due diligence. So the goal was to
Mm,
create a single top of funnel for deal intake that has a better understanding of what that deal is and looks like, and triages it automatically for us. So we don't spend time looking at thousands of deals, we spend time looking at hundreds of deals that are higher quality and more, tied to our investment thesis. So that was project number one. We're working on that nights and weekends. We had good traction with it in the sense that we had a good number of design partners, including some larger VC firms. The problem that we ran into was that they were just not opening up budget for us. We couldn't find our place on their, like we couldn't find our line item on their budget. And we were not replacing an analyst. We were not helping them, make better decisions necessarily. We're giving them an efficiency boost in a part of the process that usually they just throw more bodies at it. The more they have, more deals, right? Just firms end up hiring more analysts, and analysts are versatile because they just don't do analysis. They also buy partners coffees and they help with board decks and, all these other things that analysts do at a VC firm.
yeah.
So we were considering giving up and saying like it's just not worth building a business in this space when we started seeing these uh, questions or this pool from founders saying, hey, this type of analysis that you're doing, like, are we a good fit for an investor? We would want that ourselves to figure out if
Hmm.
we are a good fit for them, so that we don't waste our time spending with the wrong investors. And interestingly enough, we're like, okay, can we like build another product but repurpose some of the core technology? And that's what actually ended up taking off and forced us to go full time and build Flowly right now.
So when you made that pivot, did you start to, when you started to look at it through the different lens and look at it through the fundraisers lens, did you start to, what signals did you start to get that really sort of had you feel like, okay, this actually is a more interesting path and we're starting to see more traction in that way?
Of people being interested in telling that they would want to pay for this. We said, okay, like maybe this is something that we're actually going to be able to make money out of, because all the design partnerships were free of charge. Right. So
Mm,
we were getting some, let's just we called it at that point managed services, meaning that we were also helping advise those firms on how to design the due diligence pipeline and build, better, funneling system. It was also a way for us to learn what we need to build in the software.
mhm.
But they would stop there, right? They would stop at the consulting fee, the implementation fee. They would not go into the actual software subscription. And that to us was a big problem. And then when we moved on the other side, we said, people were willing to just, open up their credit card and then make a payment. It's like, okay, let's spend a little bit more time on this. And also from a TAM perspective, there's so many more people on the sell side than there on the buy side. And we also realized we may have a better shot of building a large business in the space. And it's funny because when we launched Flowlie for startups, which now is Flowlie because we don't have the Flowlie for investors anymore, we end up not, changing our name during the pivot. That was in September 2023. And I still remember the day we were in our very first office. It was effectively a shoebox in Brickell in Miami. No windows, no nothing, just, two desks. It was literally a closet.
Yeah.
It could have been a closet before, and they just repurposed it as an office to get some extra rent. I don't know. And I go out of the closet for a meeting because you couldn't have two people have a meeting in the same spot. It was just
Yeah.
obnoxiously loud. And then I come back, and one of my co-founders is there, and he's just like, jumping around, and he's like, we got sales. And I'm like, what do you mean we got sales? And he's like, no, like, during your meeting, like, we got sales. And I'm like, how
Somebody
many
paid us
sales?
money.
Yeah. And he's like, we got like 4 sales. And I'm like, what do you mean 4 people just purchased Flow? Like, it's fake news, that's not true.
Yeah.
He's like, come watch. And he was like, we were looking at Stripe, and he's like, we got 4 sales during a half an hour meeting. Holy smokes. Like, this may be legit, but it's so
Yeah.
funny because like you realize like how maybe you don't even believe in yourself that like someone will want it early on. And mind you, like, I don't even know what we had at that point. Like, the product was probably like 2 screens, and 4 people were like, yeah, no, worthwhile. And they bought annual
Right.
subscriptions too, by the way. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, thank you.
That's amazing.
One
That
of them is
feels
still a
that
subscriber
moment.
today, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
You
the
know,
early subscribers that sort of believe in it and see it early on. That's amazing. How big was the team when you started? Was it you and one other person, or like when you kicked off Lowly?
so let's call it Flowlie V1, right? The pre-pivot
Mm-hmm.
Flowlie, the Flowlie for investors. It was 5 of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did the
5.
5 come together in that way?
So my co-founder, CTO, Giovanni, met him all the way back in college. Really good friends with him, and respect and trust him a lot on all things engineering and outside of engineering as well. And we became really close friends, and it was obvious first call on getting this started. And then from there, so 2 of the engineers were actually engineers from Bartrout, which I had the opportunity to build in the past with in college. And now they're, off doing their own things. And they say, like, you may be, coding the whole day at your full-time job. Would you want to do some coding nights and weekends on this other project? Because I think it's going to be cool and can build a startup out of it. And then the 5th person, we actually end up working together before. So, and he became our data scientist and then became our data operations manager now. And he's been with the company ever since.
What was the moment when you decided to bring everybody together in this way? Like, what was the day before or the week before? Like, what was the impetus for, I'm going to bring some people together and we're going to start working on this thing together?
Yeah, so really was, Gio and I were just brainstorming. We were actually living together during that time in Austin. And we were just brainstorming this thing. I was telling him about this idea that I had on how we can support this and build this better. And we were whiteboarding a lot. And at some point, maybe like I don't know, like 5-6 days in, we're like, okay, like let's actually build this. And say I know the people that we're gonna build this with, but I also have to take this package to FedEx. It's actually a pretty funny story. So it's like, so I end up walking to the local, FedEx. It was a pretty long walk. I remember it was like maybe like 20 or so minutes. And on the way there, we got our first engineer confirmed. dropped the package, and on the way back, we had our second engineer and a data scientist. So when I came back from FedEx, I was like, all right, we have 2 engineers and 1 data scientist starting tomorrow. So let's just buy a domain so we can, get a Gmail account for everyone and we can get this started.
Oh my gosh. Of course. So early Flowlie team was like, hiring's easy.
Yeah.
Like scaling up the team is just no problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, like we had such a great experience at Board Crowd together. I called them, pitched them one idea, and both of them were like, I mean, honestly, Vlad, like whatever you're like starting next, like let's just do it together. It was such an awesome
That's so
experience the
great.
first time, like let's do it, and it worked out, and just proves to show that I think as a founder, building a great network of builders, it's so important because those are the people that you're going to end up getting in your future projects, getting your next startups, etc.
Yeah. Well, amazing to start with kind of a baked in culture of a team that had already kind of worked together and
Yeah.
had already had built trust, which is so good. What was and it's been 3 years, right? So far,
Yeah, of going full time, yes,
slowly.
almost
Okay.
3 years. Yeah, it's going to
What
be
was
3 years in March.
Oh, okay. Amazing. What was the growth from that sort of core set of five, over the next year or two?
Yeah, so when we made a pivot at that point, we brought in our third co-founder, Mark, and his background is in operations and now actual startup operations. He sales primarily, and he scaled his previous startup from seed all the way to Series C as the go-to-market leader there, 0 to 20 million of ARR. Then went to business school and became an investor. And we met as investors, and we realized when Joe and I were talking regarding our team overall, we needed a sales and operations person. We needed that perspective. My background as an investor and obviously accounting and finance and legal as a result of all the work I've done on structuring got me positioned to kind of run the company and understand kind of everything, be the CFO, and also be able to head product because we were building a product that I had the most experience in. Obviously, Gio as the CTO was able to run engineering, and we're fairly co-running product now more than before as well. But we were missing that go-to-market, sales, marketing, and operations person that we just did not have the expertise in. And Mark was looking to go back into the operating side and not be an investor anymore. Hit, the H as people call it. And I pitched him on the idea and spent some time on it, wine and dine him a few times. And then he said, you know what, like let's do it. Let's quit our jobs and do this full time. So he actually joined as our third co-founder um, for Flowlie V2 effectively. And we quit our jobs and we went full time. And since then we've grown to 9 individuals. Well, we 9 as of right now. We've at
Yeah.
most we've been 11,
Hmm.
but now we're at 9, all
Nice.
full time.
That's amazing. And
Which
how
is
fun
actually
it
the
is
most
that,
amount of people full time we had, because when we were 11, it was a mix of full time and part time people.
right. That's amazing. And how fun it is going like, that moment when you decided to go full time, then the next day when like this is the only thing you're focused on.
Yeah,
That's such a fun feeling to have when
and I
you're
remember that
all
day
in
very
on it.
well because it was in the shoebox in Brickell, Miami, right? So we got there. It was actually Mark and I on the very first day, because we were actually the first ones to go full time. So the rest of the team went full time at later dates, but like the day
Hmm.
one, it was Mark and I who went full time, and we got into his office in Brickell, and there was like nothing, right? Like 2 laptops and like I think like a few monitors we bought the day before, and we're like, well, looking around, I guess this is it. This is the beginning of the startup. There's
Yeah.
2 laptops and some monitors, and it's funny. He went to Publix, and it was a Publix right by the street, and he bought a few beers, and he comes back. He's like, we should drink a beer in the honor of opening up the new office. I'm like, you're right. And then we like, cheered in the office. It was such an iconic moment of just, okay, we are officially startup founders. I guess we need to figure it
Yep.
out now. How we move from
We're
the
out on the
shoebox to a
ledge.
proper office. And, now looking back, it's just so crazy. Like we have a nice office overlooking Times Square. And it's just like, wow, it all started in a shoebox.
That's amazing. How like did you have fun? When did funding sort of start from that initial team of five part timers to then you and Mark doing full time?
Yeah, so it was just as we were going full time. And
Okay.
because in order to go full time, we needed some capital to pay some salaries, and
Hmm.
was not from day one, but let's call it month two, we started paying some salaries, and that's one of the reasons we went full time is to actually be able to fundraise full time and be able to get it. So
Hmm.
that's when we got our first checks. Was one family office and a number of high net worth individuals, and then from there, most of our financing has been done on safes. So another family office, actually two more family office since, and a good number of high net worth individuals. So we were able to raise from, I think, 80 people at this point.
Wow.
So it's a pretty large. It's not a large cap table because we structured everything under an SPV and did it properly because of my lessons in the previous job. But a good number of individual investors, and really helpful. A vast majority of them.
Nice. That's great. And so where are you on that journey in from a fundraising perspective? And this is seed that you're raising right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was we just call that like a very extended pre-seed, or a pre-seed over 5 different safes. And
Right. Yeah.
that got enough of the capital that we knew was about $700,000 that we needed to get the business started. Again, with time, right? It don't all come up front. And I think the first tranche was 250, if I'm not wrong, and then was another 450 that came afterwards with time, and
Nice.
that allowed us to grow the team and expand and invest a little bit more in marketing and a few other things. And then now we're we've been in and out of profitability a few times. I think every time we reach profitability, we make a new hire, and we're always just pushing the boundary a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've also been, it was a good focus on revenue early on. We're able to generate a significant amount of revenue right now, which compensates for, let's say, the lack of funding and allows us to keep a
Hmm.
team of 9 full time.
What's next? What do you see from this point forward over the next, say, year?
Yeah, I mean, would be great to cross 5 million of ARR in 2026. That's the goal internally. So let's see how close we get to that. Making definitely good progress in that direction, opening up some new distribution channels for that. And would also be great to cross $1 billion in raise facilitating. We're just north of 600-ish million right now. And $1 billion is a great next step. We're not taking a percentage of it, so it's not, we're not a broker, we're not a marketplace. We're still a software subscription, but it's good to see the impact that we're able to have on all these founders and companies, and knowing that with the capital that we were able to help them raise, now they're employing people and creating new jobs and building new products in the market, and that just overall um, creates a better economy for all of us. And because a lot of our focus is United States, we're you know we like to believe that we're another, let's just call it, adding fuel to the fire to increase the GDP of the country.
Hmm. Where do you see the product going, especially from an agentic perspective, AI, automation? Like where do you see Flowlie being, say, in 2 years, or what's your kind of North Star for where you would like it to go?
Yeah, and we think about it a lot from an AI perspective, like how these people like sometimes call it the post AI world, right? And I don't know if like we're necessarily like we can claim it's post AI, but like a post this um generation of AI tools, where will we build next? In our scenario, or in our story, the way we see it is, at the core, we are a data platform, analytics platform. We need to build the best models to predict investment behavior, to predict social capital in a network, and to predict the likelihood of someone making the investment. From there, the workflow system that we've developed has to be more and more automated. And my view of the future is that the human aspect of fundraising will only be going to investor meetings. So you will not have to do anything else outside of going to the investor meetings. So I want to get Flowlie to a point where the research is automatically done for you. From there,
Mhm.
the network analysis is done for, all the intro paths are identified. From there, all those people have already been reached out to by Flowlie to make sure that they have those intro paths available or not. And from there, getting the blurb and everything out to them. And from there, forwarding to the investor. From there, being able to do the full scheduling over email with the investor so that you can say, hey, Kyle, by the way, you have a meeting with Sequoia next Thursday.
Mhm.
And that's, once you get into the meeting, you'll be prepped and have all the information you need. And once you get out of the meeting, we'll, let's say, take it from there, be able to reply to due diligence and do all these things so that your focus is primarily building a relationship with the individual rather than actually going through the diligence process. And from there, heading over to the reporting and being able to do that year round for you. So the way we see AI be a big part of Flowly is not just on the underlying hood of building better models, but also on the workflow automations to be able to remove the person from anything that the person should not be involved in.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I love the idea of of all that overhead, especially being taken off of early entrepreneurs and founders who have to spend so much time, not time on the product and not time on revenue generation, but time on just connecting the dots and trying to figure out who to get in front of and how. And if you take all of that away, think about how much more time and focus on product and revenue generation that a whole generation of entrepreneurs and founders could spend time
Exactly.
um,
And
on
how
those
much more
important
efficient
things.
the market will become when the right individuals are speaking with the right investors, without, again, trying to intermediate it, without trying to say, hey, Kyle, meet this person, but rather, hey, Kyle, let's figure out organically through your network, or let's build you a better network and better connections to be able to get to those people.
I love that. Well, I'm excited to continue to, to use the product and to see the evolution of it. And I love how fast, even from the time when I started, and then the AI agent that you all built in, and
Hmm.
it started, and now Flowly's going out and making those connections while I sleep,
Yeah.
which
And
is
we
which
have
is
our
great.
note taker launching later this week. So I'll be able to go to the meetings, record them, transcribe them, get everything into Flowly. So you can also replace, if you're paying for another, note taker, you'll have that bundled into the Flowly subscription. So a
Amazing.
lot of cool stuff is coming.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to be part of the journey, and I'm excited we're connected, and I get to see and see the insides of the Flowly journey as
Yeah.
well.
And
And
likewise with Stacklist. I mean, we've been, happy customers for 2 months now. And
yeah, yeah,
it's great to, see how we can leverage it to get more, SEO optimized content out there and have more people discover Flowly as a result of that. So it's
yeah,
been great to do it both ways.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it and appreciate your support, and your team is awesome. We love working with them, and yeah, and thank you so much for the time, like coming out and telling it. I love hearing, all of the from zero to
Yeah.
um but hearing the early stories, and I love hearing the journey that you've taken to get to this point. So
No,
we'll have to come
absolutely.
back. Maybe we'll come back next year and do a part two and see where Slowly's at this time next year. That'd be fun.
For sure. Hopefully a little bit more than, so we'll,
Yeah, a little more than
yeah.
yeah.
We'll see where we're at. But no,
Amazing.
I appreciate the invitation, and it was great to even just go down the memory lane of all the things when we got started. It's you take a lot of things for granted, and 2.5 years of launch, almost 3 years of building full time. It goes by really fast.
Yeah. Well, amazing. We'll hang out for a minute. We'll catch up here in a bit.
Awesome.